Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion around BFSI CISOs, building minimal risk infrastructure. As you all know, the cyber criminals are threatening the security of financial institutions around the world. And as we become increasingly reliant on digital financial services and digital transactions, the number of cyber attacks has increased drastically over the last decade, and financial services continue to be the most targeted industry. According to IMF, cybersecurity has become a threat to financial stability. Given the strong interconnections, a successful attack on a major bank or a financial institution could quickly spread through the entire financial system, causing widespread disruption, ranging from transactions failing as liquidity is trapped to investors and depositors losing access to deposits and payments. Therefore, cyber risk management becomes a major factor for stability across the ecosystem as banking and financial services organizations work towards unleashing the potential to achieve the next level of growth. However, risk management is not an easy task. Compliance, reporting structures, cybersecurity, and information security framework to prevent cyber attacks are some of the continuous and evolving functions which require significant resources. And in today's discussion, I have leading BFSI security leaders deliberating upon how automation can help address the gaps in cyber risk management to help build a minimal risk infrastructure. Please join me in welcoming our panelists, Mr. Manish Sehgal, Chief Information Security Officer, AU Small Finance Bank, Mr. Manoj Sarangi, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer, NSDL, and Mr. Shibu PS, Chief Information Security Officer, Indian Bank. Welcome, gentlemen. Let me start with a very fundamental question. We all know that the cyber risk landscape in the BFSI sector has evolved dramatically with new risks emanating from the new normal of remote working, multi-cloud environments, and accelerated digital transactions. So how has the cyber risk landscape changed for BFSI companies in the last 1.5 years? And what have you identified as the topmost risks for your organization? Mr. Sehgal, if we can start with you.
Okay, hi. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me for this particular discussion. Thank you, Shipra. As we would see, so first of all, at the start of the pandemic, it was banks always used to operate in a closed environment, but now there is no perimeter. Everybody is working from home. You're supposed to allow them, those connections which could be coming across from any kind of network. That network could be compromised. There could be different logistics in place while when we had a closed perimeter, everybody was working in an environment which we knew was safe. So everything has changed. The whole dynamics of looking into the information security has changed. Now, as a information security officer, you're not only supposed to look into the risk parameters which could be associated with a particular endpoint, but you are also supposed to look into what your end user is trying to do, which particular network is he trying to access to? Is he going to any particular site which could create a further risk for the organization? Because these days, hackers have also kind of, upped their game. What they have done, initially it was all related to, say, for example, trying to infiltrate into the network and then trying to get the data. Now, because endpoint is available outside, endpoint is available which is connected to any of the networks. It could be a public network, it could be a home network, a place where the security is not considered as paramount, a place where your Wi-Fi router could be hacked or something like that. So for us as CISOs, it's become quite challenging. First of all, we always believe, my friends have also been saying it across, that identity is your new perimeter. You are the one who is so I'm going to actually authenticate each and every time you log in, each and every time you are going to connect to a resource, each and every time you would be trying to access anything which is inside the banking environment. I need to put in controls which could help me ensure that the data or the the access which you are trying to get is actually authorized, approved, and then revalidate it and then give you the access. So it's basically we versus cyber criminals, and cyber criminals has always been like, it's only a game of cat and mouse. And because of the pandemic situation, it has become further difficult for us. We've been trying to always, so organization like ours or like any of the banks, wherein we were supposed to look into, say, for example, endpoint controls. And now we are supposed to look into endpoint controls. We are supposed to look into adaptive security. We are supposed to look into two-factor authentication. We are supposed to look into time-bound access. There's so many things which we are supposed to look into now. So it's really difficult, but at the same time, it's really challenging because you need to actually kind of, upskill yourself. You need to upskill your environment and adapt controls which could help you to provide the optimum security for the banking sector. That's what we are supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Threats, if you talk about, have been increasing. Earlier there was only, I would say, a ransomware used to be something like, wherein would encrypt the data and tell you that, I have access to your data, I've encrypted it. Banks still had the data, so they could control it. Nowadays, hackers, they first exfiltrate the data, then encrypt the data, and then tell it to you that if you do not pay me the ransom, I'm going to actually expose your data across. So that's how they have also kind of upped the game.
So definitely, the cyber criminals are continuously upping their game, and the pandemic actually, and the kind of the pandemic effect actually just provided the perfect opportunity for them to further, bring about the cyber attacks. So, Mr. Sarangi, in your view, when you look at the cyber risks landscape, have the risks remained the same? Is it the same risks which have kind of now escalated, or are you also seeing any new kind of risks being faced by your organization?
Thank you, Shipra. The first thing happened when the pandemic sets in is making people to work from home, work from remote. So instead of 95 or 98% people working from site, now the people are working from home. So the boundary now we have to protect has been stressed. So the real boundary is not within the control of the organization. It is quite wide open. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, when you have people, okay, there will be human related risks, like people at office at a closed workspace with monitoring and a lot of controls inside is not the same thing when they work from remote. So that's the second thing. Third thing, we are adopting technologies which may not have been fully proven, used for years, because the current scheme of work has forced us to make use of technology a lot. And a lot of the technologies that we use currently to facilitate working from home and making sure people are productive are probably not the technologies which have been time tested. So that's a third thing. The fourth thing is enhanced dependence on technology. What the pandemic has taught us is sometime we have to assume that people will not be available. So we have to look at alternate ways. Automation is one of them. So that's a dependence that is also another angle where the risk has also increased. And with that, there are buzzwords like AI and ML that has also taken center stage. Okay, and using such tools which make use of AI and ML is like making your decisions, delegating your decisions to machines or something which is directly not within your control. So what if the AI fails? What if the machine has not learned the way it has to learn? There are exceptions. There are business, scenarios which may not have been, may not have happened during the last 6 months when the machine is learning, or the artificial intelligence engine is getting used. So what happens then? what is the oversight that need to be provided? So such things actually, form part of the current risk scenario.
Thanks. So definitely the cyber risk landscape has widened, and we have seen new type of risks emanating with the new technologies that organizations are adopting. So Mr. Shibu, in your opinion, if you look at the top risks, have you identified the top 2 or 3 risks that your organization is facing in the current scenario, and how different are they from those risks that were there earlier?
Thank you, Shipra. So really, the new normal has brought the need for a reclassification of risk. Hitherto, what we were doing, now we have to reclassify. We had to reclassify. That is the way this new normal or pandemic has brought the scenario as far as risk management is concerned. So you have to reclassify the risk into different categories after considering the pandemic specific risks, because this has really accelerated the concept of say the integrated risk management approach, integrated cyber security risk management approach, because this security professionals or risk professionals are to focus on high risk and high value assets within the organizations. So a proactive risk modeling approach, which is really focused on the assets. Earlier it was focused on the attackers and focused on the risk, but now it has to be focused on the assets, then focused on the attackers is required to be adopted. So one of the major areas, if you ask, where the change in risk management affected is the, say, for example, Cyber Security Operations Center, CSOC. Because those days have gone where the CSOC was refreshed often, or CSOC was refreshed once in a while. Because now the new mantra is optimize the SOC, that too in a continuous manner. That is more important. Security Operations Center to be optimized in a continuous manner. And the conventional CSOC approach has paved the way to orchestration and automation now. In the industry language, it is called SOAR, Security Orchestration, Automation and Response. So I'm not talking about the solution per se, but the approach-wise, optimization and automation of SOC. Actually, it is the need of the hour to have a visibility on the posture on cyber security resiliency, which is very, very important in risk management and governance. So this shall be the part of the organization risk management strategy. So to have a visibility on the security posture, you have to adopt a new risk management approach, which includes the automation, or which includes the orchestration, which includes the continuous optimization of the security operations center, as well as to adopt the integrated security risk management approach. So these are the 2 things which the pandemic has changed as far as risk management perspective is concerned.
Right. So I will definitely come back to the automation part. But before that, Mr. Sehgal, when we are talking about risk management, definitely the old way of risk management needs to change. And CISOs and CROs, they need to recalibrate risk management in light with the unique challenges of the new normal. So what do you see are the biggest challenges and concerns around cybersecurity risk management in the post-pandemic BFSI landscape, and how are you recalibrating your risk management strategy in line with that? And does automation play a key part of this recalibration?
So as I said, of course, yes, automation is really going to help, So what is happening is, like earlier, when you talk about the threats, now the threats were there earlier as well. It's not like the threats were not there. But then when I say the threats landscape has changed, so it was, when you say the risk, right? So when every organization needs to calculate the risk and calibrate it as per whatever the current market situation is. If you look into it from a bank's perspective, or if you look into it from any industry's perspective, cybersecurity is something which needs to be looked upon on a daily basis, because there are new threats which are emerging, be it pandemic or not pandemic. The thing which everybody is talking about these days is the zero trust approach. What happens over there? Now in zero trust approach, everybody, so I would divide or define those small areas within my environment where I would say that I do not trust anything. I just do not trust any communication which is coming towards me. I'm going to trust on that particular action. I'm going to look into each and everything. Say, like, for example, what time do you log in? Do you log in by a particular device? Do you log in through a particular location? Do you log in using a particular MAC address? Do you log in during a particular hours? Do you access a particular resource? What is it that you are usually doing? So I'm going to actually calibrate all of that information, put it into a system, and it's system, because humanly it's actually impossible, to do all those permutations and combinations and then take an informed decision about whether this particular access could be allowed or not allowed. So what we need to do, we really need to, look into what are the solutions. So say, like, the way my friend said, SOAR. Now, security automation, orchestration, and response is basically a mechanism in which we define the rules within a particular environment that a decision is being taken by the machine itself, whether to actually allow that connection or to drop that connection. So risk assessment, yes, of course, it needs to be done basis on the assets, basis on the criticality of the asset for the organization that needs to be recalibrated. Every type of access needs to be re-evaluated and recontrolled in a way wherein I can give you or provide you with the access which is really required for you to do your job on a daily basis, nothing more, nothing less. And of course, I need to use the technology like a SOAR or something like an adaptive authentication and also, if you know it or not, in banking industry, there are applications now which are coming up across which are going to do your biometric authentication. So think about it from this perspective that those applications are capable of reading and identifying 20,000 different types of things which you do on your phone. Are you using this particular finger to log in into your say mobile banking application? What is the kind of force on which you click on your screen? Do you hold the phone in right hand or the left hand? All those things will help the bank to, and of course we need to evaluate that technology, as we were saying that, the most of the technology, because the risk is exposed, because the risk is increased, now we are supposed to actually adapt these technologies without even kind of fully testing them in the environment. Reason being, again, one particular incident could bring you down, So you need to be really kinds of, always trying to find out something or the other and implement it so that the risk is contained, controlled, and mitigated as well.
Right. So, Mr. Sarangi, how important do you think is it to continuously recalibrate your risk management posture, continuously assess and recalibrate your risk management posture, and how critical is automation a component of that? You did in your previous answer, you did touch upon automation. So if you can elaborate a little bit more on why automation becomes a critical component of cyber risk management in the current scenario.
Okay. So if you look at risk management, okay, we look at threats and we look at what is the probability of that threat materializing into action. So based on that, we do a risk assessment. So what happens is, some event which has happened in this organization or elsewhere, and that's a threat that we take, and we assess that if that threat materializes, what will be the impact in the organization. But coming to this pandemic, nobody has probably documented this kind of risk could materialize at any point of time. So that has actually changed the way we look at risk. It is not some threat which has materialized and happened in an organization or anywhere. It is the unknown risk also which we need to also look at, and what will be the impact. A complete blackout, complete unavailability of people. See, traditionally the disaster scenarios that we used to cover is earthquake happens, or power failures and things like that, where people aspects were not given that much importance because people were available. But here, the pandemic has taught us, people will not be available and nowhere. So what is the alternate? If a country is completely affected by a pandemic, which actually happened in many parts of the world during the last 1.5 years. So what do you do? What are the options? One of the biggest option is to reduce dependence on humans or people. So how we can reduce dependence on humans or the people? Reducing dependence on people, one of the ways is to look at automation. Second one is to look at strengthening your infrastructure so that people can work from wherever they are, if they are available. And the third and the most important part is making a plan for the organization. What are the minimalistic, business processes that organization can live on? So this all three now forms a risk management, part of a risk management framework. And this is getting faster adopted by many organizations.
Absolutely. So definitely automation is one pillar, but there are definitely other pillars also that all come together to make a resilient cyber risk management framework. So Mr. Shibu, you spoke about earlier, how the risk management frameworks and strategies for BFSI organizations is changing. So in your organization, from your perspective, how critical has automation become as part of that changed risk management framework? And how is it helping you address some of the gaps which were there in the risk management framework?
Yeah, actually, as I mentioned earlier, an integrated risk management approach, which is asset-centric, is important. Automation is not the only way to have a more robust risk management. The ultimate objective is to get a clear visibility on what to protect and how to respond to the incidents with minimal time. This is the ultimate objective for any kind of risk management, especially in cyber risk management. So the best cyber risk management practices, like adoption of a global risk management framework, like say ISO 31000 and NIST 853. That's also important. But yes, the mechanization or the automation is the way to unify different aspects of security in a holistic manner. So especially this is very, very important in the current scenario where the attack surface has widened and disruptive tools like say AI or ML, those tools are being used by the attackers to penetrate the network. And the attack methodology has changed and the attack surface has become widened. So the security should be in line with the technology. I always believe in that. Security should be in line with the technology. You cannot stop digital boom. You cannot stop digitalization. So only you can do to proactively take the security in line with the pace of the digital boom with a robust risk governance approach. And again, as far as automation is concerned, yes, as far as in our organization is concerned, I can say that some kind of automation like implementation of application-centric infra, ACI, the implementation of that ACI has done in our bank, which really automating the networks. It really automates the network to manage the complex environments so as to improve the security at the data center. And now we are exploring the feasibility of optimizing the CISO also through the orchestration and automation, or we can say solution perspective, we can say it is a SOAR. So that also we are looking into and exploring the feasibility. But of course, this ACI implementation, the automation of the network to get a more visibility and an application-centric infra, that was also, I think, turned out to be very good for the bank. So automation, yes, of course, automation definitely it will help us. Mr. Manoj was telling, this is actually maximum we have to avoid the human intervention. That is more important. So automation will, so many things are there to protect now. It is so wide. We don't know what are the things to protect also many times because it is so wide. So we can unify the things, we can arrange it properly, and we will get an overall visibility as this is my assets and this is what I'm protecting. That is more important. So even you can convince the top management and even convincing for the board. That is why organization, many of the organizations, they are unable to communicate to the board that about their cybersecurity posture. But automation, definitely it's a big leap, so that it can help us to have a kind of assurance on my security posture. Yes, this is my security. This is the vulnerability now persisting, or this is the vulnerability which we are envisaging or perceived risks. These are the things, it can be attained through this kind of automation or mechanization. It has been proved in our bank. Yeah.
So it kind of, brings into picture, it gives a concrete picture to the management in terms of where you are in terms of your cybersecurity posture. What are the risks? What is the cybersecurity posture? Automation kind of brings everything together, and it helps them visualize the whole scenario in terms of the cyber risk management. So if you really look at the trends which are all coming together to impact the industry, there's a confluence of trends like endpoints as the new perimeter, which you spoke about, cyber criminals leveraging advanced technology such as AI to launch highly sophisticated attacks, and new risks posed by growing cloud proliferation, among a lot of other trends. So with so much to protect from potential threats, do you think automation is actually going to be the bare minimum going forward for better and more robust risk management, and why? Is it still good to have, or is it the bare minimum now for robust risk management? Mr. Sehgal, what is your view on that?
Well, Shipra, automation definitely is going to help, as I said, because the reason is, see, what you are trying to do with the help of automation is basically trying to identify the threats which probably humanly are impossible to find out. But then, having said that, you really need to look into this as well, that automation alone is not going to really help you. You definitely need the human intervention. You definitely need, because false positives are always going to be there. So it's not just about being automation, but it's about intelligent automation. It's not about being overly dependent on machine learning, but it's all about how humans are going to calibrate the machine learning so that they could get the meaningful results. So automation definitely is going to be there. It's definitely going to chart out the way where cybersecurity is going to be kinds of, implemented within the organizations. But then, having said that, you would still need to do manual threat hunting exercises, wherein probably you would take a log of, say, for example, a day, and then, you would try to identify which is actually a threat in there. Maybe if your SOAR component or if your ML component is not really being implemented in a way where it could identify something which is actually a risk for the organization. So automation is going to stay, but yes, you need to do your basics right. You need to have your human mind in place to help you really take advantage of that. That is what is my take on it.
Definitely. So machines and humans are going to coexist in improving the overall cyber risk management posture. Mr. Sarangi, do you agree with this, that going forward, maybe not in the near future, but even in the far off future, long-term future, do you see this coexistence continuing? And how do you think automation can actually bridge some of those gaps in risk management, which probably a human intervention cannot?
I would tend to agree with Mr. Sehgal, in terms of fixing the basics. If you look at the Verizon database investigation report, most of the attacks that has materialized is exploiting the vulnerabilities which exist for long. It is not the recent vulnerability. Yesterday it was discovered and today the attack happened. So it is that which has caused a lot of damage. So automation can fix one of the problems, that critical issues that we have, like fixing the basics. That means OS not having the patches or not having the antivirus and things like that. That, or definitions and things like that, that should get fixed first. Number one. Number two is, if you look at the recent incident that happened, one of the largest operating system provider had a lot of vulnerabilities, and one of the biggest enterprise monitoring tools has huge vulnerability, which has exposed a lot of organizations onto cyber attackers. So it's not that automation will only fix the problem. We need to have complementary controls. Like if the security of the OS fails, operating system fails, what is our complementary control? How do you prevent an attack from happening? We do have to assume that there is a vulnerability which exists in the system despite all the systems are patched. So what is the complementary control? Something like, we talk about EDR, endpoint detection and response, or XDR, which is extension of that. Those are the things which will probably give her complementary, security if something fails. So it is like, having an insurance if there is a failure. It's like that. The antivirus fails. So what is the second thing that you have? The OS should have been patched, and vice versa. They should protect each other. So in addition to automation, these are the things that we need to build into the ecosystem. So that it's much more resilient to the risk that we are encountering.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Shibu, going back to the topic of the discussion, what we are talking about is building a resilient and minimal risk infrastructure. How is automation and how is human intervention going to work together to build that minimal risk infrastructure and resilient organization going forward?
Yeah, as Mr. Manoj was telling, it is not, replacing the human intelligence is completely replacing the human intelligence is somewhat impossible. Impossible in the sense it will not yield any good result for the organization because you are completely automated. Even a driverless car also recently crashed, right? So driverless car, we were talking about driverless car, we were talking about IoT, talking about blockchain technology. See, these all the things, automation is good. As far as the technology is robust, yes, it is good. Say, for example, this blockchain technology, it is based on the encryption, cryptography. So once the cryptography fails or when the encryption fails or the algorithm is broken, that's it. So if you are too dependent on the full automation and completely eliminating the human intervention or human brain, that is not good for the organization. Definitely, even for a security operations and environment also, you have to have a baseline. You have to have a baseline on these are my systems. If this is breached or this is beyond the tolerance level or this is beyond the threshold level, what to do? That kind of action has to come from the human. Of course, system will help. The automation will help. As I mentioned earlier, the SOAR will help because it will orchestrate and it will automate the SOC. And it will reduce the response time also. But again, the reduction of the response time, we cannot completely depend on the system. Okay, it is reduced. So we need not worry about the incidents or these kind of incidents are already drilled down. It is not like that. You have to have an analysis with your human brain. That is more important. So a coexisting or a hybrid environment only will be going to be, whatever be the technology is coming or AI, ML, IoT, let it be. But of course, human is primary. Human is the base. Over and above, you build the layer of latest technologies. That is only going to exist for the organization, any kind of organization in the future.
So what this also means is that a critical component of the risk management framework and strategy also needs to be very clearly defining what automation brings to the table and where the humans, the skills, the human skills, what they will bring to the table and how the two are going to work together is going to be, I think, very critical to ensuring that the cyber risk management framework is robust. My last question, is about, establishing a strong compliance and governance practice within the banking and financial services organization. That definitely has become among the topmost priorities in the BFSI industry. So while we have been talking about, from a cybersecurity perspective, how can automation play a vital role in establishing a strong compliance and governance practice? So, Mr. Sehgal, if you've any example that you want to give from your organization, or an overview of how, from a risk and so from a compliance and governance perspective, what role will automation play?
So as you're saying, Shipra, that we implement these kinds of softwares which could help us. So what happens is, whenever, first of all, all of us are really lucky to have the regulator, RBI, because RBI is one of the strictest financial regulators across globe, and they have always been, trying and pushing banks to come up to a level wherein the depositors' money remains secure. That's their primary goal. Building compliances around it, ensuring that all those compliances are met on a timely basis, is basically what is the real constraint and crux around here. When you talk about compliance and governance, so governance part, as I said, RBI issues a circular. The circular is given across to the banks, and banks are supposed to comply on that by a particular date and a particular time. They have always been trying to, so they recently came up with a particular circular in which it was clearly mentioned that you need to do continuous compliance of your network. Continuous compliance basically means what? You cannot do it on a human basis, right? You would need to involve those automation tools which could help you to deliver on that particular aspect which RBI is expecting from a bank to perform on. Having said that, you need to look into it from this perspective, that compliance and governance. So compliance is basically one function which talks about to be complying to a particular standard, a particular regulation. And governance is about imposing that within your organization. So information security, in fact, plays a critical role in both of the things. We are supposed to give the compliance to the regulator, as well as we are supposed to ensure that the governing body, which is my organization's board, is also feeling happy about it, that we are able to comply with the whatever the requirements are as far as the data security is concerned, as far as cyber security is concerned, information security is concerned. If you talk about my organization, so there are tools, like when you talk about, in fraud risk management for that matter. So there are tools which help us to issue compliance to the regulator, to issue compliance to the board, that where we are at any given date or time. Now that FRM tool will be able to do the fraud risk, prevention as well, and give us a compliance parameter on that as well. And that particular, because that particular report cannot be manipulated, so even regulator for that aspect is going to rely on that. The board would also be able to happily say that, yes, we are compliant if a report, if a automation system is giving us a report out on that. In the same way, so there are softwares which are being implemented within the banks, and our bank as well. We have a compliance tool which helps us to actually identify which are the areas which really require some kind of working. And then what we do is we keep on tweaking it on a daily basis. So something like, say, for example, if a standard needs to be achieved, we look into it from this perspective. Today, what is the requirement? Tomorrow, why not deliver? So that RBI can also look into it from this perspective, that, the bank, this particular bank is doing something which is kind of over and above what is required really from the regular working. So that way, if you ask me, yes, automation is definitely going to play a big part as far as compliance and governance is concerned, and the validation of that is concerned.
Okay, great. So Mr. Sarangi, your take on how automation can help address some of the gaps and challenges that BFSI industry faces today as far as compliance and governance is concerned.
Okay. So compliance is, what compliance is, to do things the right way, and governance is having an oversight to it. Okay. While compliance is a singular truth, single pane of truth, governance is layers in layers. Like in a governance, you can have your management, you can have board or different committees which provide governance at different layers. But the compliance is something that happens on the ground, and taking a view of that. Okay, there are already automation tools and different technologies that are being used for governance and compliance as well. So GRC tools, which are currently deployed in many organizations, they do kind of take care of compliance requirement as well as provide a single pane view to the management based on their roles. Like, if you look at legal head, the kind of view that he would need versus a CISO or a CIO, the kind of view of compliance that the person will need will be completely different. Okay, and the whole thing is, compliance is not something that can be given only as a regulatory requirement. It is a compliance is at various level. Like for business processes you will have compliance, for standards you will have compliance. You may want to comply to certain best practices in the world, and then the views that are provided to management, let's say the board, is like a very 36,000 feet view of all the different areas, risk areas, and what is happening in them. But the larger thing is, the role of the security, cyber security has changed over the time. Okay, you can think is like, from a guard to detective, data center now to the boardroom. So the security, cyber security role has evolved over time. So as the requirement of compliance as well as the governance. Okay, and cyber security now forms a critical part of any organization's risk management framework, along with operational risk. Operational risk used to be the larger discussion point in the boardrooms, but now cyber risk has found its way to the boardroom. So if you look at the governance, in different organizations perceive it differently, but one thing that is common in governance is layered governance, to make sure that whatever compliances that are being reported are properly analyzed and a proper oversight is provided to make sure that the organization is doing things the right way. And that is also kind of reported at various forums as well.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Shibu, looking at the BFSI industry, it is actually one of the most highly regulated industries. And like Mr. Sehgal mentioned, RBI is continuously releasing new compliance requirements, regulatory requirements. So, does automation become a necessity here for better compliance and governance, in the sense that it provides that a single view of truth and a single pane of truth, like Mr. Sarangi mentioned, and it gives an oversight to the entire compliance and governance practice?
Yeah, I will tell my experience. Now, as Mr. Manoj was telling, that now it's one of the cybersecurity is one of the important agendas in the boardroom. When compared to earlier years, say 5, 6, or 7 years back, that was nowhere discussed or something like a normal agenda it will pass on. But now board is well trained, and board also understands as far as the data breaches on an hourly basis it is happening. So board also understands the importance of cybersecurity. So whenever this agenda is happening in the board level meeting, I would be able to convince the board, as I mentioned earlier, in a very holistic and a true picture I can give as far as the automation is there. Because they also have to have a dependency on that. Suppose if I am telling certain things, okay, this is my posture, this is my endpoint level protection, this is the network level I have, these are the systems, or the application level we are having this many controls. So, but if I am putting it in a proper way with the help of the automation, that will be convinced to the board. So as far as governance is concerned, see, the bank is having certain vision and mission, and that business vision or business mission has to be integrated with the cyber risk. Whenever they are discussing a business strategy in a boardroom, always we can think about integrating that particular business accomplishment or the business target with the cyber security. So always this the compliance means it is a strong focus on compliance. It indicates that bank is having a cultural integration, and board oversight means yes, it is having a strategic integration. So this kind of cultural integration and strategic integration can be achieved through the way of automation, because automation is something, it is de facto. I can believe it, board can believe it, top management can believe it. So I can very well say this is the compliance posture, this is the security posture of my organization. These are the things which need to be addressed, or these are the perceived risk due to certain changes in happening, say for amalgamation. Our bank also means our bank and Allahabad bank got amalgamated. So that is the biggest change which has happened. So during that particular amalgamation, so many risks are perceived. These are the risks which can exist or which can perceive if it is not addressed. So in my experience, yes, I was able to convince the board or convince the top management because of the automation and a certain kind of a dashboard. I can easily able to present and convince the business cases or convince the cybersecurity cases to the board. So that is the way automation has to help, and automation has to be there. But of course, as I told, it is not only the automation. It is, again, you cannot replace the human intelligence and human behavior. That is different. But still, automation will definitely going to help, and it is helping also as for the robust governance as well as risk management practices. Of course, for the compliance also, because now security has become almost a security, compliance is security. So it is almost that boundary is blurred between security and compliance. But as far as the compliance is concerned, yes, there also automation helps in the way because it is helping the governance aspects. It is interlinked. Governance and compliance somewhat interlinked. Automation definitely will help in these two aspects.
Definitely. Thank you so much, for this insightful discussion. A lot of aspects of cyber risk management, how it's changing, how the security function needs to recalibrate the entire cyber risk management posture has come out really well. And to sum up, one thing that we all agree on, and I'm sure our delegates will also agree to it to a great extent, is that automation definitely will be a key enabler to better cyber risk management. However, it will be one of the pillars with the human intervention and machine intervention working together closely for a more resilient and minimal cyber risk infrastructure. So with that, I would like to conclude this discussion. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and it was indeed a pleasure talking to you.